Hi everyone, I just purchased a new Rostra 250-5110 Pro backup kit. This one has a 25-foot cable, which is going to be a lot more than I need, but it's pretty much what I was able to find on the internet. Now, I've unpacked it and I've laid out this 2x4 with at the same length as my back bumper on my Ram pickup truck. Now I'm using the undermount just to demonstrate it, or actually to test it, and you can see, if I can zoom in here, you can see the actual sensors are inside this. Each one of these mounting brackets. Now I'm not going to use those mounting brackets when I complete the installation. The one thing about this is that they recommend that you install them in a certain order. So the one here at this end is going to be 1, then next is 2, 3, and 4. So when I flip this up to demonstrate it, the mounting brackets will be underneath. So 4 is actually going to be on the far right side of the bumper. So now here's the 25-foot cable, and then this is the control module right here, the electronic control module, and you'll see the cable plugs into that. Then out of that same pigtail comes a connection that takes you over to, get this paper out of the way, over to the sounder, and or the buzzer, whatever you might want to call it. And then there's also a lead out of this thing for the power supply. Well, let me get that in there. The cool thing about that, it's only got a ground and a battery connection, and the battery connection actually hooks to the backup power. So when you throw your backup lights on, that's when this unit is powered up, and it goes through a diagnostics. And speaking of diagnostics, if it finds that one of the sensors is bad, after the diagnostics complete, it'll beep the number of times to indicate which sensor is bad. I'll demonstrate that later on. Also in the kit you get some connection stuff, and you get these 2 hole drills, saw type. One is for the metal bumper and the other one is for a plastic bumper. The plastic bumper is smaller, the metal bumper is larger, because there's a metal, for the metal connection there's a rubber boot that goes around the sensor that you might be able to see from the back here of a sensor up close. There's a metal boot there, a rubber boot that goes inside that hole, so it has to be big enough to take that rubber boot. Alright, so that's pretty much what comes with the kit. Now my plan when I install this thing, I'm going to demonstrate it next video, but when my plan is when I install this thing, I'm going to naturally drill holes in the bumper, run the wire all the way to the front through the engine compartment up into the cab, where I'll install the electronic control module and the buzzer. Then I'll go back through that same boot in between the firewall, back into the engine compartment, ground the ground lead, and then the red lead, it just so happens on my Ram, fuse 28 on the power module, is fused and hot when you throw it in reverse. It's really meant to go to the trailer connection for the backup lights. I'm going to use that to power this thing, so it'll be off the fuse side of fuse 28. Alright, so next video I'll actually have this set up and on sawhorses and walk in front of it and show you what it sounds like. All right. Okay, so now I've put the unit that represents my bumper out on some sawhorses, and if you were to use the undermount brackets, you see they would be underneath the actual bumper. I, on the other hand, am going to drill holes in mine and make it look more standard. Alright, now I've got a 12 volt battery supply here to demonstrate this thing, and I'm going to hook it up now. I've got the negative side hooked to the ground, and I'm going to hook the positive side to this red lead. And so this is the same action as if you had thrown it in reverse. And then it'll go through a diagnostic, and after which it'll give you a tone. So let's try that now. So that means it passed the diagnostic. Now, if I go out and walk past, well, it means it completed the diagnostic, and had it failed, you'd have got some more bumps, beeps. Alright, so I'm going to go out past this. Alright, it sensed me walking beside it, so I'm going to now walk towards it. The manual says that it assumes you're backing up about 3 miles per hour. Alright, sensed me right at 5 feet. You can see I'm right about at 5 feet. Well, maybe you can't tell, but that's what it is. Now, it has, as I get closer, it's going to get, the beeps are going to be faster. And so now I'm fairly close, and the beeps are almost continuous. And that's what it's trying to tell us there. Okay, now it'll even work in this arrangement. It's fairly close. The sensors are fairly close to the edge of my bumper. So if I come along the side, it'll even go off then, even before I'm actually behind it. See, I'm 1.5 feet from the edge of the bumper. Actually, now I'm probably 2 feet. Yeah, I'm 2 feet, and I'm about 6 inches in front of it. So it senses fairly well. I've tried running it up next to the car, carrying the actual 2x4 to sort of act like the car backing up, and it's about the same distance, 5 feet, it starts beeping. Also, there I'm at 5 feet 3 inches, and I compared that to my Jeep that has standard factory installed one, and the distance is pretty close to the same. I have yet to test the capability to sense a trailer. This one says it'll sense a trailer and won't go off when you're back in the trailer, so that'll be interesting to see, and I might post that if that truly works well. Alright, so now, like I say, my idea is I'm going to drill the holes, mount those sensors, and by the way, they go in a certain way, and so these sensors are marked. This is marked number 4, and the part that plugs into it is also marked 4. So you just put the sensors in, number to number, and 4 is at the far left end, and 1 is at the far driver's side end, and 4 is at the passenger side end. So I'll run this cable all the way up to the front, go up through the engine compartment. Now, rather than try and drill a hole through a boot to go into my engine, from the engine to the cab, and push this connector through, I'm actually going to cut this cable at the right length and poke it through, and then re-splice it once I get it in the cab. And the wires are, the color code is straightforward. And when I splice it, I'm going to use solder splices, and I'm going to offset them so when I finish, the actual size here won't be a whole lot larger than it is right now. If I bundle up the splices at the same spot, it'll get quite large, and I didn't want to do that. Naturally, I'm not going to use any kind of mechanical connections because they're not as good. They give you mechanical connections in here, press kind, but I'm not going to use those. I'm going to solder because it's just better. And when I solder, I'll naturally put a heat shrink wrapping around each joint to insulate it. And then once I get the control unit inside the cab, I'll poke the wire that has the power on it back in through that same boot and hook it up to the fuse panel on my RAM. Now let me demonstrate what happens through a diagnostic if there's a fault in one of the sensors. So I've disconnected a sensor, and let me go through the diagnostic here, and you'll hear the results of a failure. So I'm going to disconnect the lead from the power side, and here we go. I'll hook it back up. So you hear those 3 short beeps right afterwards. That indicates sensor 3 is not seen or is defective. Of course it's not seen because I disconnected it. Alright, so there you go. Hopefully this helps you. I know when I was doing the research I was not finding anything, so that's why I chose to put this out on the internet. Let me know if you have any questions.